chance encounter Captain Jack Harris guided his exploration craft through the swirling violet clouds of the planet Aquarius, a distant water world on the fringes of known space. As a veteran scout for the Earth Expeditionary Forces, he had seen his share of strange new frontiers, but something about Aquarius called to his spirit of adventure. Suddenly his senses pained and alert a faint life sign straight ahead. Jack descended through the mists, the azure oceans of Aquarius. Coming into view, he spotted the source of the signal, a small angular shuttlecraft smoldering in the shallows of an island cove, banking his ship towards the beach. Jack touched down on the fine sand. He pulled a medkit from the hold and approached the downed shuttle with caution. Peering through the cracked transparent steel, he saw an astonishing sight. A light blue-skinned alien woman lay slumped over the control, her emerald hair cascading over the console. She was clearly unconscious, her breast shallow. Not wasting a moment, Jack wrenched the hatch open and pulled her free just as rising seawater began to bubble into the cockpit. Carrying the alien in his arms, Jack dashed back to his ship. He laid her down in the medical bay, hoping his human knowledge would be enough to help her. Vital signs were weak, but stabilizing. He stood watching over her, marveling at the delicate patterns etched across her skin, wondering what had brought this mysterious visitor to such a remote corner of the galaxy. Captain Jack Harris guided his exploration craft through the swirling violet clouds of the planet Aquarius, a distant water world on the fringes of GN space. As a veteran scout for the Earth Expeditionary Forces, he had seen his share of strange new frontiers, but something about Aquarius called to his spirit of adventure. Sudden, his senses pinged and alert a faint life sign straight ahead. Jack descended through the mists, the azure oceans of Aquarius. Coming into view, he spotted the source of the signal, a small angular shuttlecraft smoldering in the shallows of an island cove, banking his ship towards the beach. Jack touched down on the fine science sand. He pulled a medkit from the hold and approached the downed shuttle with caution. Peering through the sea-transparasol, he saw an astonishing sight. A light-skinned alien woman lay slumped over the controls, her emerald hair cascading over the console. She was clearly unconscious, her breaths shallow. Not wasting a moment, Jack wrenched the hatch open and pulled her free just as rising seawater began to bubble into the cockpit. Carrying the alien in his arms, Jack dashed back to his ship. He laid her down in the medical bay, hoping his human knowledge would be enough to help her. Vital signs were weak with stabilizing. He stood watching over her, marveling at the delicate patterns etched across her skin, wondering what had brought this mysterious visitor to such a remote corner of the galaxy. Part 2 Alien in Need. Her name was Zira, and she came from an advanced civilization known as the Quarry Dominion. As she recovered under Jack's care, she explained how a surprise attack by a savage enemy, the Vinnick, had damaged her ship and sent her kiting off course, stranded light years from Quer space. She had begun to despair until Jack had found her. "I owe you my life," she said, her voice resonating with a musical cadence. Her luminous eyes met his. "I know little of your species, but I sense great courage within you, Jack Harris." Jack felt a strange flutter in his heart at her words. The more he learned of Zura and her people's wondrous culture and technology, the more he felt drawn to her. But he could see the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, the pain of being torn from her home one evening. As an alien sunset painted the sky in streaks of gold and indigo, Zira turned to him, her expression serious. "Jack, there is something I must ask of you. My people are in grave peril. The Vonic will not stop until they have conquered us. I cannot abandon in them." She took a shuddering breath, her eyes shining with emotion. "Will you help me? Will you aid me in returning to face this threat?" Jack knew in that instant that he would travel to the ends of the universe for her. He reached out and took her hand, electricity passing between them at the touch. "You don't have to face this alone, Zira. I'm with you no matter the odds. We'll find a way to sphere your people." A single tear traced down her sullen cheek as she squeezed his hand in return. In the fading light of an alien world, a bond had been forged, unbreakable and true. Perilous rescue, leaving the serenity of Aquarius behind. Jack and Zira set out on their desperate mission, she shared with him the coordinates of a secret rally point where the scattered quarry forces hoped to regroup. But to reach it, they would have to cross a treacherous expanse of Vinix-controlled space. As they navigated the swirling current of a cosmic storm, Zara marveled at Jack's DEA piloting skills. "You make it look effortless," she said, eyes wide with admiration. "Among my people, it takes years of training to master such a feat." Jack grinned, his hands dancing over the controls. "Well, we humans are quick learners. Adapting to new challenges is kind of our specialty." Zara returned his smile, a newfound respect kindling in her gaze. But the moment was short-lived as a harsh proximity alarm blew through the cockpit. A trio of wicked-looking Vorks warships dropped out of hyperdrive disruptor cannons, bristling as they bore down on Jack's tiny vessel. Gritting his teeth, Jack wrenched the ship into a wild corkscrew, narrowly evading the initial salvo. The inertial dampeners whined in protest as he pushed the engines to their limits, slingshotting around the gravity well of a nearby moon. Zara's eyes darted across the sensor, red out, her voice tight with controlled urgency. "They're hurting us away from the rally point. We're not going to make it." An idea ignited in Jack's mind, a spark of human ingenuity. "Maybe we don't need to outrun them, we just need to outsmart them." With a few quick keystrokes, he dumped the contents of the ship's waste recycler, venting a cloud of chaff into space behind them. As the Vork's sensors struggled to compensate, Jack cut power to the engines, letting the ship drift like a lifeless hulk. Zura sent out a distress pulse on a Quilla frequency, then go silent. She nodded, catching on to his plan. The Vinix ships closed in, scanning for any sign of a trap. Jack held his breath, praying to the stars that his gambit would pay off at the last possible second. He fired the thrusters and wrenched the ship skyward, slicing between the Vorik formation with bare meters to spare. The enemy vessels scrambled to give chase, but were too slow to react. With a triumphant whoop, Jack punched the hyperdrive, leaving the Vorks eating iron dust. Zara collapsed back into her seat, her heart pounding with exhilaration and relief. She turned to Jack, eyes shining with newfound admiration. "That was incredible. I've never seen anyone fly like that." Jack just winked, trying to ignore the somersaults his own heart was doing at the sight of her awestruck expression. "Stick around, Blue, you ain't seen nothing." Yet against all odds, they found the quarry refugees huddled in the shadow of a shattered moon, their once proud ships battered and in scorched. Zura's reunion with her people was a somber one, tear-stained embraces punctuated by tales of loss and despair. But through their grief, the Quilla looked to Zura for guidance, and she in turn looked to Jack. "My friends," she said, gesturing for him to join her before the assembled survivors. "This is Jack Harris, a human from Earth. He saved my life, and now he's here to help us save ourselves." A murmur rippled through the crowd as all eyes turned to the alien stranger in their midst. Jack stepped forward, meeting their gazes with a steadfast resolve. "I know you're hurting, I know you're afraid, but if there's one thing I've learned in all my travels, it's that hope can be found even in the darkest of times." He turned to Zora, drawing strength from her presence at his side. "Zara told me of your people's courage, your ingenuity, your indomitable spirit. Those are the same qualities that have allowed humanity to reach for the stars, and together they will be the qualities that see us through this fight." A spark seemed to catch in the eyes of the gathered quarry, a flicker of renewed determination. In the days that followed, Jack worked tirelessly alongside Zura to bolster the Rig fleet's defenses. He shared human tactics and strategies, improvising novel solutions to problems that had confounded Query military doctrine. Under Jack's guidance, the Kerry engineers repurposed mining lasers into makeshift weapons, while their pilots drilled in, sharing new flight formations. Zura watched in amazement as her people's spirits soared, galvanized by the humans' infectious optimism and resourcefulness. In stolen moments between the frenzy preparations, Jack and Zira found solace in each other's company. They spoke of their hopes and dreams, of the lives they had led in different corners of the galaxy, and as the specter of the impending battle loomed ever closer, they clung to the fledgling bond growing between them. Drawing courage from the knowledge that they would face the oncoming storm together on the eve of the final confrontation, Jack stood on the observation deck of the Seri flagship. Staring out into the endless expanse of stars, Zira found him there, the starlight, casting a soft glow on her cerulean skin. "Jack," she said softly, coming to stand at his side, "I'm scared if we fail tomorrow." He turned to her, taking her hand in his. "Hey, none of that. We've come too far to start doubting ourselves now. I believe in you, Zira. I believe in your people. And I believe that when we stand together, there's no force in this universe that can stop us." She looked up at him, her luminous eyes searching his. In that moment, the fear seemed to melt away, replaced by a surge of something far more powerful. She leaned in close, her lips brushing soft against his. "Thank you, Jack Harris," she whispered, "for everything." As he held her beneath the canopy of alien stars, Jack knew that whatever tomorrow might bring, he would face it, with Zira at his side, their hearts beating as one against the infinite possibilities of the cosmos. The final stand, the Vorex Armad, descended upon the Ku's last bastion, like a swarm of locusts, a seething mass of warships that blotted out the stars. At the heart of the enemy fleet loomed a monstrous dread, not bristling with planet-cracking weapons that had spelled the doom of countless worlds. On the bridge of the quarry flagship, Jack and Zira stood, shoulder to shoulder, watching the approaching horde on the view screen. Around them the mood was tense, but determined, every quarry at their station focused on the battle to come. "This is it," Zira said, her voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. "Everything we fought for, everything we've lost, it all comes down to this." Jack reached over and clasped her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his own. "We've got this, Blue. We're going to show those VRNX exactly what happens when you mess with Quirian humans." He turned to the assembled bridge crew, his voice ringing out with conviction. "All right, everyone. This is what we've trained for. Stick to the plan and trust in each other today. We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for the future of the Quarry people, for the right of all species to live free from tyranny and oppression." A cheer erupted from the crew, a defiant roar that echoed through the ship. With a nod to Zer, Jack took his position at the tactical console, ready to put his human cunning to the ultimate test. As the Vinnic ships entered weapons range, the battle erupted in a cataclysmic exchange of fire disruptor beams and plasma torpedoes crisscrossed the void, sundering shields and hulls in blossoms of silent destruction. The Quila fleet, bolstered by Jack's unorthodox tactics, met the onslaught with a fierce resistance. Mining ships, retrofitted with improvised armaments, harried the enemy flanks, drawing off fire from the main body of the fleet. Agile fighters darted through the chaos, exploiting weakness in the Vinnic formations with surgical precision. At the center of the maelstrom, Jack orchestrated the battle like a conductor before a cosmic symphony. His fingers danced across the console, coordinating the fleet's movements with split-second timing. Beside him, Zira relayed his orders to the quarry captains, her voice a beacon of calm amidst the storm. But even with their newfound strength, the quarry was still vastly outnumbered. One by one, their ships fell before the relentless might of the Vennex dreadnought, its world-shattering cannons carving swaths of destruction through the embattled fleet. As the flagship shuddered under a barrage of enemy fire, Jack met Zira's gaze across the smoke-filled bridge. In her eyes, he saw the same steely resolve that had first drawn him to her, a determination that burned brighter than the stars themselves. "It's time," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We have to take out that dreadnought, or we're all stardust." Zira nodded, a fierce grin spreading across her face. "Then let's show them what humans in Quarry are made of." Together, they rallied the battered remnants of the fleet for one final desperate charge. With Jack at the helm, the flagship hurtled towards the Vork's behemoth, weaving through a storm of enemy fire with preternatural grace. The dreadnought loomed before them, its hull out work of scars and eblet of plating. Jack's eyes narrowed as he searched for a weak point, and in the armored Leviathan's hide, there a flickering in the dreadnought's rear shields, a hairline fracture in its defenses. With a triumphant shout, Jack wrenched the flagship into a corkscrew dive, lining up a shot at the exposed vulnerability. "Fire everything we've got," he rolled his finger, slamming down on the trigger a lance of blinding energy erupted from the flagship's main cannon, piercing the dreadnought shields and burrowing deep into its reactor core. For a heartbeat, the battlefield seemed to hold its breath. And then the Vorin juggernaut vanished in a sun-bright conflation, a miniature supernova that sent shockwaves rippling through the fabric of space itself. Cheers of joy and disbelief echoed across the query comm channels as the remaining Borinic ships, their morale shattered by the loss of their flagship, fell into disarray. The tide had turned, the impossible victory snatched from the jaws of defeat by the indomitable spirit of human and Quillery alike, as the last of the enemy vessels flooded into the void. Jack turned to Zira, a smile of pure elation spreading across his face. She threw her arms around him, laughter and tears mingling as they held each other amidst the jubilant clamor of the bridge. "You did it, Jack," she cried her voice alight with wonder. "You saved us." All he shook his head, gazing into her luminous eyes with a depth of emotion that transcended words. "We did it, Zira, together, human and Quillery, side by side, against the darkness." In that moment, as the stars themselves seemed to sing with the promise of a brighter tomorrow, Jack knew that he had found something far greater than he had ever dared to dream. He had found a purpose, a shared destiny, with the woman he loved, and a place among the cosmos he would forever call home. An unforeseen reward in the aftermath of the battle. The quarry home world erupted in celebration. The streets of the capital city swarmed with joyous crowds, their songs and laughter rising in a symphony of triumph. At the heart of the festivities, Jack and Zira walked hand in hand, marveling at the outpouring of gratitude and adoration directed towards them. Queer children danced around Jack's feet, their eyes wide with awe at the sight of the human hero who had saved their people. Elderly Query pressed tokens of appreciation into his hands, tears of joy glistening on their time-worn faces. Through it all, Zira remained at his side, her presence a constant reminder of the unbreakable bond they had forged in the crucible of war. As the days turned to weeks, Jack found himself immersed in the wonders of Crew society, learning the intricacies of their culture and history under Zira's patient tutelage. He marveled at their towering spires of shimmering crystal, their gardens of bioluminescent flora that painted the night in a kaleidoscope of colors, and always the love he shared with Zira burned at the center of his newfound life, a guiding light that filled his heart with a sense of belonging he had never known. But even amidst the peace and contentment, Jack could not shake the restless in his soul, the call of the stars that had first drawn him to the life of an explorer. And Zira, attuned to his every mood and desire, sensed the unspoken longing within him. One evening, as they sat together beneath a canopy of stars, Zira turned to him, her expression alight with a secret joy. "Jack," she said softly, "I have something to show to you." Hand in hand, she led him to a secluded hangar bay where a silver ship, unlike any he had ever seen, awaited them. Its lines were fluid and organic, as if grown rather than built, and it hummed with an inner life that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of the universe. "What is it?" Jack asked, his voice hushed with wonder. Zira smiled, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's a gift from my people to you, a symbol of our gratitude, and a means for you to continue your journey among the stars." She placed a hand on the ship's gleaming hull, and it seemed to pulse in response, as if acknowledging her touch. "This is the pinnacle of query technology, Jack, a vessel that can cross the galaxy in the blink of an eye, that can adapt to any environment, any challenge, and it's yours to take you wherever your heart desires." Jack stared at the ship, his mind reeling with the possibilities it represented. But then he turned to Zira, a sudden realization striking him like a bolt of lightning. "What about you?" he asked, his voice tight with emotion. "I can't just leave you behind, not after everything we've been through together." Zira's smile widened, and she took his hands in her own. "Who said anything about leaving me behind?" She gestured to the ship, her eyes owl-like with anticipation. "I'm coming with you, Jack. The quarry have given me leave to serve as an ambassador to the stars, to forge new bonds of friendship and alliance with the beings we meet on our travels. And there's no one I'd rather have by my side than you." Jack felt his heart soar, a rush of joy and excitement flooding through him like a supernova. He swept Zara into his arms, spinning her around in a giddy embrace. "You mean It we're really doing this together, she laughed, her voice a melodic chime that seemed to harmonize with the ship's coal hum. Together now and always, wherever the stars may lead us, hand in hand, they boarded the ship, marveling at the wonders that awaited them within. The cockpit was a symphony of light and color, the controls responding to their thoughts as much as their touch. As they settled into their seats, Jack felt a sense of rightness, of destiny, clicking into place like the final piece of a cosmic puzzle. He turned to Zira, his eyes shining with the promise of a future brighter than the stars themselves, ready to see what's out there. Blue, she grinned, a hand finding his as the ship thrummed to life around them. With you, Jack Harris. I'm ready for anything. As the ship rose into the night sky, the lights of the Quilla home world falling away beneath them, Jack knew that he had found something far greater than he had ever imagined. He had found love, purpose, and a place to belong in a universe that had once seemed so vast and unknowable. And with Zero at his side, he knew that no matter what challenges or wonders awaited them among the stars that would face them together, their hearts beating as one in the great cosmic dance of discovery and adventure. So ends the tale of a chance encounter between a human and an alien, a story of love and courage in the face of impossible odds. But for Jack and Zira, it is only the beginning of a journey that will span the stars and redefine the very meaning of home. For in each other, they have found the greatest reward of all, a love that transcends the bounds of space and time, and a partnership that will light the way for generations to come.